Granite from Norway was the biggest kid yet. He was 6 feet tall and built like an adult weightlifter. He said he was only 14, and Midas wondered how quickly he must have put on muscle. This blonde-haired, blue-eyed Northern European didn't have an accent. In fact, he spoke English very well. His body movements seemed a bit stiff next to the others, and his feet made noise that Midas could hear sharply. I wonder how much he weighs, Midas thought. The next one had an accent Midas could barely understand. Isotope from Kazakhstan is what Midas was finally able to get out of him. He was 5 feet 8 inches tall and thin. He had brown hair and green eyes. When Midas asked him, "How old are you?" he looked like he didn't understand at all. After a little coaching, he finally got the answer of 13. It seemed like a good answer, and he could really be 13. Midas just wasn't sure if something was lost in translation. Shroud from Israel was the next to check in. She was all business and wanted to get to her room quickly. Brown hair and brown eyes at 5 feet 6 inches tall, he thought to himself. He knew she wouldn't answer the age question. Instead, something just popped out of his mouth. "I'll need your birth month and year for check-in," he said, matter of fact. "June 1996, said Shroud. He finished checking her name off the list and handed her a card quickly. He tried to think of why he said that. His mind raced until he came to an odd conclusion. "Who is listening in?" he thought very loud. "Answer me!" he thought even louder. The Brazilian girl who read his thoughts earlier got up from the dining tables and started walking over to where he was at the front desk. "Perfect," he thought loudly. "Don't be mad," he heard her voice in his head. When she finally made it to the counter, he asked her, "Can you put thoughts into people's heads?" "Yup, I read minds, communicate telepathically, and even control someone else's mind." "Virtuoso, that is an invasion of privacy," Midas said, happy he remembered her name. "Yes, but I think the information you're getting is great. So good, in fact, the people at this counter are all I'm listening to. I suggest some teamwork." "How so?" Virtuoso smiled and leaned on the counter. "You keep getting information, and I will write it all down." She knew he could remember all the information himself, so she added something. "Plus, I will write down whatever they are thinking, and we can go over it together after everyone checks in." Midas thought about it. It would be cool to know who the other students are before anyone else. "Except me. I'll know it right along with you." "Do you have to read all my thoughts?" "It's like you're hearing. People are just so loud," she said with a big smile, knowing he would understand. "Okay, do you," he tried to say, "have something to write with?" "No." "Will I take something from behind the counter to write with and on?" "Yes." Midas said nothing. He just handed her a pad of paper and thought, "Pencil or pen?" "Pen, please." She took the pen and sat down in the dining room again. "Most people get freaked out at the mind-reading thing. You don't seem too bothered. Why?" "There's another mind-reader here named Zoner. She kept reading my thoughts when we arrived here last week." He read his check-in list back to her by way of her telepathic link. Pretty soon they had a list of everyone, where they came from, how old they are, what they look like, and how they acted when they first came in. A Japanese girl named Shi was next to step up to the check-in counter. She was 5 feet tall and lightly built. When he asked her age, she said she was 13. She was very beautiful. "Keep your mind on your work," he heard Virtuoso's voice in his head. "I was just noticing." "Guess what? She's a stealth, and her father is Shogun, the leader of the Tokyo team," Virtuoso thought to Midas. "Joseph, she had brown eyes, right? My handle is Midas. For the last 8 days it's been Midas. In your head you call yourself Joseph. And you don't even like the name Midas. Heads up, I hear a sparrow coming." "You can hear that? Do you have super hearing?" "Maybe. I thought it was just near mishearing, but I'm finding out a lot of what I thought wasn't quite right." "You didn't know you were a super, did you?" "Shh, I need to talk," he thought back. The young man checking in was named Cyber. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall and kind of thin with black hair and blue eyes. He said he was from San Francisco and Midas got out of him the age of 14. He seemed nice, thought Midas to Virtuoso. He was slightly above average looking. What does that have to do with anything? When I was listening to your thoughts, you were rating the girls. It's only fair I get to rate the guys. Also, he's a technoganic, a mixture of technology and superorganic together. Think of him as part living cyborg. I didn't know there was such a thing as technoganic. There isn't, that's what he calls it. So you don't call it that until he does. First rule of not letting someone know you're a mind reader is not letting them know you've read their mind, she thought with a laughing voice in his head. The next boy to walk up was from Germany. His name was Chain. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and a larger frame. At 15, he was 5 feet 10 inches tall and looked strong. He was very matter-of-fact about his check-in. Above average looking again. And what's with the blondes with blue eyes? Virtuoso thought to Midas. What's wrong with blondes? My baby brother has blonde hair and blue eyes. That could have been me. Would you have said another blonde about me? He thought back to her with the tease in his voice. Yes, but I can see your brother in your thoughts. He's only 8 and he's still cuter than that guy. The next child to come in had brown hair and blue eyes. His name was Ranger. He was from New York. He was 5 feet 3 inches tall with an average build. He seemed really excited to finally be here. When Midas asked him his age, he said he was 13. He's going to be the leader of Team 2, Virtuoso thought to Midas. How can he know he'll be picked by a coach as a leader? His father is Mason from the New York team. His grandfather was from the New York team before the HU. He's 4th generation practicing superhero. His father has taught an Alpha class before and did really well. Alpha is giving him Team 2. His dad is going to be his coach. Wow, you can really learn stuff by eavesdropping this way. What kind of powers does he have? He makes solid illusion. Mental images he can make real by thought for a while anyway. He can also fly and teleport. He's also fast and strong, and he's cute. You can knock the cute stuff off any time. He makes solid illusion. Mental images that he can make real by thought, for a while anyway. He can also fly and teleport. He's also fast and strong, and he's cute. You can knock the cute stuff off any time. You noticed when the girls were cute? I didn't invite you to listen in, did I? True, and in all fairness, your thoughts are pretty clean. If you could hear the thoughts I've heard, you'd be in a clock tower. Why? What's in a clock tower? Never mind. Gia was from France with red hair and green eyes. Midas put her height at 5 feet 4 inches tall with a strong build for a girl. She said she was 12 years old. Gia had some kind of radiance about her and seemed bubbly about everything going on around her. She's a healer, and she has power over earth and plants. She can even morph into dirt, earth, or rock. Midas didn't have time to think back. The check-ins seemed to be coming faster as dinner approached. Darkspeed was the next person to check in, a polite boy from Salt Lake City. He stood about 5 feet 9 inches tall with a track and field look to his body. He had blonde stubble on his head with green eyes. Midas found out he was 15 years old. After Darkspeed left the counter, Midas thought out loud. Well, what did you get? Nothing. He has a mental shield, a strong one. I could break into his mind, but he would know I'm there. That sounds creepy. A guy with the first name Dark and his mind can't be read? There are different levels of mental shield. If it's weak like yours, I can get in and the person won't notice. I have a mental shield? Tell me about it. Yours is barely existent, like it's new. From your memories, I would guess it just turned on with the rest of your powers a couple weeks ago. Darkspeed's is very strong and has been on for years. I don't know if he even knows it's on, but it is. The next boy to check in was a Libyan boy named Newton. He was 5 feet 5 inches tall with black hair and brown eyes. He had an average build and seemed very uncomfortable. Midas noticed how he kept looking around. When Midas asked the other boy how old he was, Newton told him it was none of his business. When Newton walked away, Midas thought to Virtuoso, "What is that guy's deal?" It wasn't his idea to be here. Nations that call for the downfall of another, or have not recognized them, have not been allowed to send kids to Alpha. It's like when an Arab nation won't recognize Israel as a nation, or the way Israelis deal with their neighbors. Anyway, his government was training him to use his powers in the military. His government wants participation in the HU. They told him he was going to Alpha. They didn't ask. Sounds familiar. Did you get his age and powers for the chart you're making? Yes, I did. Newton is 14 years old, can fly, and controls gravity. Back at home, could anyone keep a secret from you? My dad, he's a strong telepath too. My mother was an open book, but she was used to that from my dad. Midas was getting hungry. He went to pick up the phone and get a bot to bring him something to eat. As he reached for the phone, Virtuoso interrupted him. "I'll get you something. Do you hear anyone coming?" She thought to him. "No, we have a minute or two." A couple minutes later, she brought him a few snacks on a plate. "I just got you something to hold you over till you can sit down for a real dinner. That's when we can really go over this list," she said. When she got up close, he remembered how pretty she was and wouldn't look directly at her. He was trying hard not to think about her.